Alright, what is going on YouTube? Today we're going to be doing a little single action only conversion here on my Shadow 2 Orange. We'll be switching over to Cajun Gunworks flat trigger, and it's pretty straightforward, easy deal. So I'll go ahead and get started. Step 1, we're going to remove our grips. Pop those out. Sometimes they like to stick, so I'll stick my finger in there and pop them out. Next, go ahead and grab our block here. We can take one of our punches. Push out this pin. Pull that strap out of there. The pin out of the way. And we'll come down here. Grab our hammer. Grab this pin, and then you'll want to hold this little plug in here with some pressure before you pull your punch out, otherwise that thing's going to go flying. Pull that out. Get the tension off that. Set that to the side. Set that to the side. Alright, now we can go ahead and remove our safety. So, I don't know how well you guys will be able to see it, but this little Sear spring here, you're going to want to pop that up and push on your safety from the opposing side here. And you can go ahead and pull that guy right out of there. Set that to the side. This other side of the safety, you're gonna want to rotate it up, and then that pops right out as well. Then you're ready to pull out your Sear cage. That will just pop right out like so. And then next we're going to want to grab a set of needle nose, and we're going to pull out this safety selector, detent, plunger, whatever you want to call it. I'll pull that out of there. Make sure to keep a spring on there. Alright, so now we are going to pull out our hammer pin stop. I don't know what you want to call this exactly. Detent. Flip that upside down. Pin will fall right out of that hole. Set that off to the side. Then we can push out our hammer pin. Pull that out of there. Set that to the side. Boom, we got our hammer out. Next, we are going to take out our trigger pin. So, set that up nice. Get our punch. Give a little tap to get started, and hopefully drive that out. I'd already had the Cajun Gunworks floating trigger pin installed. So pull that out, and it's real important here, you want to keep your punch inside of this hole, because if not, your trigger return spring is going to go into the stratosphere. So what I like to do is put my thumb under there, and then pull my punch out, and the spring should hit you right in the hand. Get that spring out of there, set that to the side. Now at this point you can pull your trigger bar and trigger assembly out. So, boom, damn near stripped frame here. Set that to the side, and we're going to work on this trigger here. So first things first, you're going to want to knock out this trigger pin here. Grab your punch. Sometimes you can just push them out here, depending on how. Oh yeah, so that one just pushed right out real easy. So trigger bar, won't be needing this anymore. I've got our new Cajun Gunworks flat trigger. Nice looking little piece of aluminum here. It's got your over travel and your pre-travel adjustments here. So I've fiddled with this a little bit, seeing where I want to get it. I had it in the gun at one point, but you'll want to get it in the gun, adjust it where you want, and then what I'm going to do is pull it back out, put a little Loctite on there, and then get it set exactly where I need it to. But for the time being, we're going to put our trigger pin back in here. And the trigger bar is going to go into the lower pin of the trigger. So if you can see that, flush on both sides. Nice, done with that. And then once you're here, if you want to do any polishing or anything on your trigger bar, now would be the time to do it. But we're not going to be doing that, so we'll set that to the side. Actually, sorry, we're going to put our trigger return spring in. Cajun Gunworks is nice enough to send you a slave pin with the trigger return spring, I believe, or it comes with a floating trigger pin. I can't recall. So, going to take our spring. It's kind of a pain in the butt sometimes, but I'm going to force it down in here. And we're going to use this slave pin that comes with the Cajun Gunworks stuff. Put it in here, and that will capture that spring. Nice, so that way you just drop it in and you put your new floating trigger pin in. So we'll set that to the side for now. Next we are going to pull out our disconnector here. So this, basically removing this piece is going to eliminate your double action function. So these are staked from the factory. I've had this one out once prior, so it'll probably come out a little bit easier. But if it's your first time pulling it out, you're going to want to get a nice strong punch, and you want to set it up and give it one good whack to get it to move, which we have moved. So now, let's see if we can push that out the rest of the way. No, we can't. So we'll get it on the edge of our tape here. Okay, that disconnector pin out of there, pull our punch out, got our disconnector. Won't be needing that anymore, so we can put those up here, the non-utilized pile. Same thing here, if you want to do any polishing or anything on your hammer, now would be the time to do it since you got it out. But now, we're going to set that to the side. We can go ahead and we can either drop our hammer in or our trigger bar. Either way, it doesn't matter. There's no particular order between these two here, but we'll go ahead and drop in the hammer. And I'm going to put our hammer pin back in. Slide that in there. Make sure it's seated all the way in the hole. Then we want to take our, I guess, hammer pin keeper, I guess is what we'll call this, and slide it back into its home. Push it down in there. Done. You want to make sure that it is flush, if not a little bit lower. There's another pin, this disconnector pin actually is just a tiny bit longer than this one, so that is something you can get mixed up, and then when you go to put your sear cage back in, it's not going to go in. So make sure that same pin is going back in that hole. Alright, now we can go ahead and put our trigger assembly in here. Go ahead and slide it down. And when you're sliding this in, you want to make sure that the trigger return spring, the leg of it is above above this channel that it's sitting in. You want to make sure it doesn't go down into that hole there. So go ahead and slide in our trigger bar. I like to take a pick and I'll just move this over into its home there. And then at this point, you'll want to pull your trigger down and into position to where you can get your new floating trigger pin. Alright, so now we've got our trigger pin started, so we should ensure that your slave pin is coming out the other side. And we should just be able to push on this. Give it a little bit of a whack here. Just a couple taps. Tap that in to flush on both sides. Here, your slave pin came out. We'll set that off to the side as well. Push this in a little bit more here. Got that in there. Make sure your return spring's down in that groove. We can put our safety plunger detent back in its home here. So I don't know if you guys can see this very good on the camera, but these notches on the top, so the notches are going to go towards the top and towards the inside of the frame of the gun, if that makes sense. So if you're looking at it this direction, your notches are wanting to be on this side. So slide our spring back on here. There's a little machined out part for that spring to sit in the back of the frame there. Oops. Let's try this again here. My fingers are not working today, so we're going to use some needle nose here. So we can take our needle nose, grab it on the end, place the end of the spring back into its hole there, and pop our selector back into its home. Okay, so once again, yeah, I don't know how well you guys can see this, but those notches should be resting up against the little mill dot section of the frame here. So now it is time to install our sear cage. So you have to lift up on the hammer just a little bit and kind of wiggle it into place there. And once you got it kind of set in on that groove, you can bring your safety over here. Once again, you're going to put it in straight up, you're going to cam it over down. And then we can come in with our safety on the other side. And this sear spring here, you're going to want to pop that up out of the way. And once you get past that first little bit, you can kind of just wiggle it in the rest of the way here. And then now at this point, you should be engaging both sides of the safety. So what I like to do is take my pick, and those two little notches on that safety plunger detent, you'll pull that back a little bit and then push your safety in the rest of the way. We'll push back on that and we'll push our safety in. And then if the spring did not fall back into the little groove on the safety pin here, you're going to want to just slide that over down into its home there. Then at this point you can function test your safety. So you can cock the hammer back, we'll pull the trigger, and your hammer should not go forward. Now, safety off, trigger, hammer up. Okay. Cool. So now, next step, we will slide our hammer spring back onto our hammer. Get our plunger and slide that back in there. Now this, you can do this one of two ways. So some people like to push it on the edge of their desk or what have you. Most of the time I can get it by pushing down with my thumb here. Slide that into the hole and then readjust. Okay, that was way more difficult than it needed to be. Alright, now we can take our strap, place it into its home, push that back there, slide our pin in. Alright, so now at this point we can go ahead and put our grips back on. And we can run a little function test here. So this take-up here you can adjust out with this screw. You can actually access it from in the gun, which is nice. You can, oh, got the wrong Allen wrench here. Get a dang thing in there. So now, go in a turn or two here. So I'll mess with that later, but safety, gun's not going to go off. On fire, pull the trigger, boom. Perfect. And that'll about wrap up the single action only conversion.